One evening, Elizabeth goes to a party to have fun for a night, but the next morning she curls up in bed while her roommates gossip that Elizabeth claims to have been sexually assaulted last night. Sonny calls her while she's in bed and tells her he misses her, but Elizabeth shuts him down, saying it's creepy for him to talk to her like that, and tells him never to contact her again. Elizabeth tells the police that her psalter was stolen, but the police tell her that she does not have enough evidence to file a case. Her mother comforts her by telling her that she believes in her and that men will try to steal from her many times in her life, but she should not let it bother her. Elizabeth decides to move on with her life and comes up with the idea of a blood testing device to make healthcare more accessible. This is how Theranos was born. She asks her parents to invest in the company, saying that she will be dropping out of Stanford and that her tuition money can be used to fund the company instead. One day, a stray bullet hits Elizabeth's car outside of her office, and she almost gets shot. In a panic, she calls Sonny, who comes to her office to find her crying on the floor. At that time, Sonny says that he will help her find the person who shot her. He will always protect her, and in the next scene, before they know it, they are kissing. Elizabeth has hired a team of experts, including Edmund Koo, Rakesh Madhav, and chemist Ian Gibbons, to make a machine for her idea, the RDX Metabolic Profiler. Are you enjoying this video? Click subscribe. You would be helping me continue to create more sexy movie recaps just like this for you. And the power goes out because Elizabeth has not paid the electric bill on time. Elizabeth is in financial trouble, so she goes to Professor Robertson for help. However, when Robertson tells her that Don Lucas, a millionaire, shows up unannounced at her office and asks to see the working prototype, when Elizabeth tells him that it is not ready yet, he gets up to leave, but she stops him and gives a moving speech about how the blood testing industry is run by big companies that want to make money. She also tells him that this company will help the public by giving them more freedom and insight into their healthcare. Lucas is very impressed by your presentation and wants her to meet Larry Ellison, who is the CEO of Oracle Corporation. The next day, Elizabeth gets on a boat to meet Larry, who agrees to secure her a meeting with a pharmaceutical business if she can prepare a prototype. Larry also tells her that until she can be ruthless and fire people, she will never be a billionaire. Meanwhile, Elizabeth receives a phone call from her mother who informs her that her father has been hospitalized. She immediately gets off the boat and heads to the hospital where she discovers that Sonny has taken care of her parents. However, her father advises her that she must return to work as they've invested all of her tuition money in the company, and now she can't look back. When Elizabeth arrives at the office, she finds the staff celebrating Edmund's birthday and shouts at them for not working. She later calls Edmund and informs him that she wants them to work for 24 hours until they have a working prototype. After countless tries, they finally get a reading from a drop of Rakesh's blood, and everyone rejoices since they now have a functional prototype. The team then travels to Switzerland to demonstrate the prototype to Novartis, which is a large pharmaceutical business. But in the hotel room, the machine continues to generate problem warnings. Elizabeth calls Edmund for help, but no matter what they do, the machine does not work. Later, she asks Rakesh if they still have the reading from when the machine worked on the day of the presentation. She fakes the demo by injecting her blood into the machine and showing the previously saved data. This way, she gets $165 million from Novartis. At the office, everyone celebrates the success, and Elizabeth gets a raise. Sonny then tells her in no uncertain terms not to tell anyone else about this as the business grows. Elizabeth has brought on famous Apple employees like Anna Areola and Avi Tation, as well as other powerful people. Later, her mother tells her that her old neighbor, Richard, is trying to hurt her business out of spite. At first, Elizabeth does not think much of it, but she later finds out that Richard has patented a home blood testing device that she must buy from him anyway. In the meantime, she has to deal with a lot of other problems. Elizabeth keeps misleading the board members and puts off showing them the working version. AV thinks that the company has not met its obligations to Novartis, but she lies and says that they have a lot of pharmaceutical interests and are doing a trial with Pfizer on real patients. On the other hand, Elizabeth and Sonny's relationship is falling apart because she is slowly being pushed out of her business world. Sonny decides to look into Theranos while Elizabeth is on a business trip, but he is shocked to find out that she is 10 years away from Elizabeth, hires a stranger named Brendan Morris to come up with a different version of the device. When she decides to go with this version, disagreements arise among the team members, and some of them, like Edmund and Anna, leave the company or get fired. AV tells Don Lucas that he is worried because Theranos does not have contracts or facts to back up Elizabeth's claims. Don, on the other hand, tells AV that he should trust her because she runs the company. He tells AV that if he does not trust her, he can resign from the board of directors, which AV agrees to do. Eventually, the board members start to notice Elizabeth's incompetence, and Don Lucas calls for a vote of no confidence in Elizabeth as CEO. The board then decides to remove Elizabeth as CEO, but Elizabeth begs the board to let her keep Grant. By doing this, she convinces the board to keep her as CEO, and she can also fix her rocky relationship with Sonny. A few months later, Elizabeth goes to Walgreens' offices with Sonny, the new CEO, to make a deal to sell Theranos products in their shops. Dr. Rosen is the medical head at Walgreens, and he meets them when they come to make their pitch. Elizabeth charisma and charm and pressure him, but they have to convince Walgreens CFO Wade Miquelon, who has sent his lab specialist Kevin Hunter to check Theranos' laboratories because the machines are still broken. Elizabeth and Sonny do everything they can to keep them out of the lab. Elizabeth makes up a story about how she does not want to show Kevin her lab because he used to work for Quest Diagnostics and they might try to copy her. However, Wade says that they will not move forward with the deal until they can see the lab. On the other hand, Ian Gibbons, Theranos' head chemist, finds out about Project Beta and goes to see Channing Robertson, an old friend, and Elizabeth tells Wade that they are not eager for a deal because they are also talking with the CEO of a store called Safeway, Stephen Bird. The next day, both Walgreens and Safeway showed up at the site. Elizabeth says that she has chosen not to go through with the deal with Theranos. Walgreens believes that she may have gone forward with Safeway, but they later find out that she has refused them as well. Elizabeth and Sonny come from the office discussing a flight to Boston. Seeing this, they believe that Theranos may be making a deal with CVS Pharmacy in Boston, which is their main competitor. They both agree that Elizabeth may be bluffing about the CVS Pharmacy, but they can't take the chance if it's true, so even without inspecting the lab or the working prototype, Walgreens and Safeway agree to the deal with Theranos. Fast forward to 3 years, and Walgreens has grown irritated by the machine's regular failures and delays, and as always Elizabeth stalls the questioning, stimulating reality with empty promises and clever words. However, Wade sets a strict 6-month timeline for Elizabeth to complete the first wellness centers, where the deal will be terminated. On the other hand, Elizabeth is suing Richard to have his patent revoked, which compels Theranos to buy his invention for a remote blood test. They're both too proud to give up the fight, and finally Richard comes up with an idea. He goes through Theranos' patient records and discovers that Ian Gibbons' name appears on almost all of them, so he mails Ian with a subpoena. Meanwhile, Ian is becoming increasingly depressed after working at a desk for 3 years, unable to do the chemistry work he's supposed to. When he receives the subpoena, he becomes scared and consults with Theranos' legal advisor. Ian wants to tell the truth, but he is afraid of getting sued by Theranos. At the same time, he does not want to lie because he does not want innocent people to get hurt. Next, Sonny is annoyed that Elizabeth agreed to a September deadline when they are still far from having a working machine. He tells her that she is avoiding responsibility and that she should focus on the machine instead of marketing. Later, a well-known board member named George Schultz introduces Shin tells Sonny that they will launch it in steps, and for part 1, they will change how the Siemens machine works. Are you enjoying this video? Click subscribe. You would be helping me continue to create more sexy movie recaps just like this for you. Elizabeth has hired a well-known lawyer named David Boyce to defend her in her case against Richard. As Theranos' lawyer, Ian is getting more and more upset. Linda writes a letter saying that he is sick and that he has a drinking problem. She asks Ian to sign it so that he will not have to go to court. Ian knows that if he signs it, he will not be able to get other jobs and that it will hurt his reputation. When Ian's wife wakes up the next morning and looks for him, she finds him dead on the bathroom floor. When Elizabeth hears about Ian's death, she seems upset at first because Richard's case is closed because he cannot witness anymore. Later, Theranos security comes to Ian's house to get all of his work stuff while his wife watches in terror. Elizabeth gives a speech to let everyone know that their new machine will be available at Walgreens in 48 hours. Tyler walks in to start his first day, and Mark, the new lab head, greets him. Ian, who was there to witness, is no longer living. David says that he will drop the case against Richard if he gives up the patent. Richard reluctantly agrees, but he tells David that he will find out what Elizabeth is hiding and expose her to the world. He then calls Dr. Phyllis Gardner of Stanford University to ask about Elizabeth, and she tells him that Elizabeth has always been a fraud. It is now 2013, and Elizabeth has hired the famous documentary filmmaker Errol Morris to make ads for Theranos. Walgreens is now using Theranos machines without knowing anything about their flaws. Meanwhile, Richard is still angry and doing everything he can to bring Elizabeth down. He tells Wall Street Journal reporter John Kerry that the entire Theranos company is a fraud, but John tells Richard that he needs a better source and stronger evidence to make this claim. Richard and Dr. Phyllis go to Ian's house to talk to his wife, Rochelle. Rochelle admits that Ian kept saying that Elizabeth had not invented anything, but her name is still on the patents as an inventor. They call John again, but he says he will need more proof because Ian's words are not written down. Richard tries to get in touch with people on LinkedIn in the next scene in the hopes that someone from Theranos will show up and talk. Erica Chung, a big fan of Elizabeth, starts her job at Theranos. She works with Tyler in the lab, where she sees that the lab is split into two parts, one for real tests and the other for practice tests. She is confused, so she asks her boss, Dr. Mark, what is going on? He changes the subject right away to avoid more problems. Tyler tells her that the real tests are done in a secret lab called Normandy. A few days later, Erica is moved to Normandy, where the real tests are done one night while she is working alone. Erica realizes that the test results of live patients are being changed and that there is no sticker on every Siemens machine. Some blood tests are diluted and tested on the Siemens machine, while those tested on Theranos' machine are manually changed even when the results are wrong. She tells Tyler about the incident, but he finds it hard to believe that Elizabeth would do something like that on purpose. However, he assures Erica that he will take this matter seriously. Tyler puts his name on the email so that Erica will not get in trouble. The next morning, Sonny calls Erica and Tyler into his office and fires Tyler right away. He then tells Erica that he knows she did this and that if it happens again, he will make sure she can never work anywhere again. Terrible, muddled Erica and Tyler go to see George Schultz to tell him about the problem. But since he trusts Elizabeth without question, he does not listen. George does not want to help them. Later, Richard sets up a secret meeting with Mark, who is the head of a theranostics lab. Mark says he will not blow the whistle, but he can confirm a few facts and point him in the right direction. On the other hand, John sees a glimmer of hope when Erica and Tyler call him in the next scene. Takes us to 2015, where Elizabeth is living a luxurious life, interviewing presidents for a time profile, and being followed around by a security team. Meanwhile, journalist John Carew is still looking into the Theranos story and talking to doctors and patients who have used their equipment. He now has several sources ready to testify, and his boss wants him to stop. Judith asks him to send a questionnaire to Theranos so that when the time comes, they can say that they gave the company a fair chance to make its case. In the meantime, Elizabeth and Sonny meet with their lawyer, David Bowie. Elizabeth and Sonny refuse to answer the journal's questions, so Bowie suggested they go after Johns. Sonny then threatened the doctors who are supposed to testify against Theranos and demanded that everyone sign non-disclosure agreements. Mark saves hundreds of business emails on his personal drive, but at the last minute, he deletes them all out of fear that the company might sue him. John hopes that Tyler will talk to the Journal on the record, but he has not gotten the call yet, which is bad. Rupert Murdoch is a very rich person. The Wall Street Journal has put $125 million into Theranos, which makes it almost impossible to reveal them in the next scene. Tyler talks to his grandpa, who tells him to come to his house to talk about Theranos so Tyler will not get sued. When Tyler gets there, he finds that Thanos is the legal agent. After some talk, Linda is already there, and she and George want Tyler to sign another non-disclosure deal, but he won't. Linda warns him that if he does not do his tone, the Renaults will file many lawsuits against him, while David Boyes and his legal team visit the Wall Street Journal's office. However, the unexpected happens when David accidentally confesses that Theranos uses third-party analyzers. The statement turns out to be the final piece of the puzzle, and the article comes together. Later that evening, Elizabeth attends a function for the Harvard Medical School Board of Fellows and meets Dr. Phyllis, who is also a board member. She goes on to say how honored she is to be on the same board as Dr. Phyllis, but Phyllis responds by saying that she's looking forward to the Wall Street Journal article sometime later. John finally exposes Theranos' fraud in the Wall Street Journal, and the news spreads like wildfire throughout the media and the general public. Meanwhile, Elizabeth gathers her employees and declares that the story is unreliable and that they'll cooperate in disproving it. The following day, Elizabeth is terrified and calls each board member, claiming that John's article is full of lies and that he's a sexist journalist who can't stand a successful woman. Sonny, on the other hand, tries to stop Walgreens from ending its contract with Theranos, even though the article says that Elizabeth has kept her board members and none of them have quit or stopped supporting her. In the next scene, Elizabeth and Sonny, both afraid of losing everything, start to blame and threaten each other for the company's problems. Erica decides to make an official complaint with CMS, which has the power to shut down the Theranos labs. Later, Tyler pays a visit to his grandpa and gets him to speak out against Elizabeth, thinking that it will be a big step toward finding out the truth. George, on the other hand, does not believe him and tells them to leave. Next, a CMS inspector named Gary comes to investigate Theranos' labs, but Sonny tries to delay and manipulate him. Gary finishes the report in February 2016, which says that all Theranos lab activities must stop for 2 years. Elizabeth accuses Sonny of everything and tells the board members that she had no idea what was going on. One morning, Sonny wakes up to find that Elizabeth has attended an early morning board meeting without telling him. It turns out that she told the board of Sonny's decision to leave the company. After that, as Elizabeth is getting ready to leave, he yells at her and threatens her, but he knows that exposing her will also be his downfall in the next scene. George goes to John's office and tells him that he was wrong to say bad things about his own son. He says that he does not want to be a spy against Theranos, but he does give the writer a statement that protects Tyler's reputation. Elizabeth tries to fix things by giving a long interview to the media, but it does not help. Later, we see her at an empty Theranos office, which suggests that the company is no longer in business. Later, her former lawyer, Linda, tells her that if she is found guilty of the accusations against her, she could face up to 20 years in prison, but Elizabeth still says she has not done anything wrong and walks away. As the series ends, we find out what happened to Elizabeth and what happened to she has been charged with 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiring to commit wire fraud. She is still free while she waits to be sentenced, but she could go to jail for up to 20 years. She lives in California with her husband, Billy Evans, and their son.